Hi, how do I edit code? That's a question I got the other day from a learner who was brand new to HTML and web development. And I think it's a very good question to ask. And I want to take some time today answering that. So how do I edit code? And it depends always depends a bit on the programming language you're using, but in this case, we're looking at HTML. And for that, we need to understand one thing, that is when the browser opens or loads this website, each line we see here has a specific meaning to the browser. That means when it reads this line here, HTML, lang, en for English, has a specific meaning as well as head, meta, title, link, etc. So when we go ahead and would change anything like this here, then we would possibly break the website. And therefore, we need to know what we can change something. And let's walk through this. So each HTML website has a few things that are always the same. Like they always start with this here, doctype HTML, HTML lang en for English websites, or like with English language, head and body, where head is containing, or the head contains a lot of meta information, such as like how the website is supposed to be rendered on a mobile device, what other files belong to this website, in this case 2 style sheets, and the website title. The title here is the only thing from the head section that's visible in the browser, like that we can see directly, and that is HTML and CSS learning resources directly corresponds to the title up here in the browser tab. Now, usually when we write HTML code, we don't have to edit anything in the head section unless we need to add another style sheet, for instance. But usually, like this here, remains the same. So therefore, I'm collapsing this, so we don't have to look at that right now. Now, everything in the body, body is denoted by this one here, and the closing tag, that's there's an opening and closing tag, and everything between these two tags is part of the actual website, which means everything we write here corresponds to something that we can see in the browser, like a headline, a paragraph, a list with links. The colors and font sizes and the text, or the text underline, is all managed by CSS. So now we have more tags here. A tag is always denoted by these angle brackets, some text, in this case H1 or P, and we always have an opening tag and a closing tag. The closing tag also has H1, but a /. Anything between these two tags, H1 and the closing H1, is part of, in this case, the headline, or here the paragraph. So now when I'm editing my website, there's a few different ways how I can do that. For one, I could add more content. For instance, I could say I collected a few resources down below. So then I'm changing the text that's visible on the website. I'll reload this. Then we see here that we see the changes I've made. Now, the other thing I could do is add more tags to the website. And for instance, I'd like to add more explanation to each of these list items, saying CSS Tricks has great tutorials on Flexbox, animations, and grid. Then what we will see is the new text. The styling is off, but that's a CSS problem or like a CSS task to handle. But we see there's new content here. And of course, the other thing I could do is delete this here again to remove something, like an element from the website. Now, every tag here has a dedicated meaning to the browser or for the browser. What that means is when we use something like an H1, it corresponds to this here, and H1 is a headline, and the headline always has a larger font size compared to a paragraph and might have some defaults for padding and margin so that it doesn't stick to directly to the border here of the browser. Another example is this down here, this list here that translates to these bullet points. The browser automatically adds bullet points for each list item here. And of course I can customize that if I want to, but the default is I get a bullet point. And when we look at the list item, what's in there, in this case, a link. A stands for anchor. It's a link to another website. We see this links to developer.mozilla.org. And that's the display text, like what we actually see when we look at the website. And that's the destination when we click on the link where we will be sent to. Now, when we use a link, the browser knows what to do about it. For instance, render a link with a text underline and a different cursor. Like you see when I hover over this link here, I get this hand instead of the pointer that I usually have. And of course, when I click on it, then I get to this new website, in this case, CSS Tricks. Getting back. So that means what we see is every HTML tag has a specific meaning to the browser. And therefore, when we design a new website, we need to determine what tags we need to use to accomplish the new design.